What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Powerhouse Mentality podcast. I'm your host. I'm Caitlin Kenneth Smith. And on today's episode, I'm going to give you a little bit of a recap on some lessons that I've learned over the last couple days, or one particular lesson that I learned over the last couple days that kind of like accumulates over the last few days that God has clearly been trying to beat into my thick skull. As well as I really want to focus on the topic of healing and pain. The reason I want to focus on that topic is because it goes into what I'm going to talk about first when it comes to like the recap of my last few days. But also I feel like so many people are in this space where they're in pain, they're struggling, they're going through a tough and challenging time in their life because life is just like that, right? Life is challenging, and whether you're going through something or you're trying to recover or heal from something, it's important to understand how healing works. And that healing itself is extremely painful. But let's talk a little bit about pain. You know, I've been keeping you guys a little bit up to speed with how my back has been going over the last couple months, and it's crazy when I think about it because I've never really had a big injury like this. I've had, things come and go. I've had low back things pop up occasionally where, I'd throw my back out and I'd have to modify my workouts or take a day off. And then I'd be fine like a few days later. Or I had some issues with like plantar fasciitis at some point. I had an issue, I want to say like a year and a half ago, where I kept popping my rib out of place, kept having rib subluxations, and was dealing with a lot of just inflammation from that. And it was very frustrating, similar to kind of what I'm going through now with my tailbone, back, coccyx area. But last Monday, I was doing some PT exercises, of course, and I threw out my back. Like I felt it spasm. I felt it lock up when I was doing Bulgarian split squats. And it was such a tough moment for me mentally because the entire week prior, I felt 100%, like 100%. I'd had some of the best training sessions of my entire life in that week. And mentally, I was feeling so good because I thought that this back issue was behind me. And obviously, I'm not naive to the fact that just because your body's not in pain doesn't mean it's still done healing. So I understand that like when it comes to like a injury, or specifically with the back, because it has so many different pieces to it, right? I knew that I had the potential to re-injure, but I didn't think that it would happen the way that it did, number one, but also I wasn't ready for it to happen at the capacity that it did. And initially, I dropped the dumbbells and I like tried to walk it off. I tried to stretch it out, and I was just really at that point praying to God that it was going to be okay. But slowly throughout the day, I learned that it was not okay, and it was back to how it was. Now, it did feel a little bit different. Like I said, it felt more locked up. It felt more muscular. And over the next few days, I tried to really just stretch it out a lot, massage it a lot, muscle stim it, ice it, take care of it, modify workouts if I needed to. If something didn't feel good, I wouldn't do it, or I would lower the load or the volume, or replace it with another exercise. And in one of my training sessions, I did some running, and the running caused that sharp, stabby pain to return, which is not a good thing. So when I went to my PT on Thursday, he had said that my tailbone was pulling to the left, and that if I didn't run, then I probably would have been okay, and it probably just would have healed like a muscular injury. But now the tailbone was out of place and pulling, and for some reason, it seems like every time I go to the PT, my tailbone is moved out of place. So for whatever reason, my tailbone doesn't want to stay put, and I'm going to my PT tomorrow, so I'll continue to keep you guys updated, because the reason why I'm sharing this is, number one, I think that this is a valuable piece of my journey to share, because I think so many people look at people on social media or look at athletes or look at the journey and they just see them, doing the work, training, being on the competition floor. But maybe they don't see all the other things that go into things. Like, how many times have you watched, a competition or seen an athlete training And then a few weeks later, a few months later, you're watching like a YouTube video or a documentary thing that they did. And they talk about how they were injured or how they had something going on mentally or how they were really struggling during that time. But you wouldn't have known it if you watched the initial videos. If you go through my Instagram, you'll see me training, you'll see all this stuff, and you wouldn't even know that, like, I understand if you're struggling right now because I'm going through it too. And maybe somebody who doesn't do fitness as a career or doesn't do fitness with the passion that I do fitness, you may not understand how much this is challenging for me, not just physically, because it's excruciatingly painful and it's very uncomfortable. And I'm to the point where I'm just frankly tired of being in pain and tired of, every time I go to bed at night, I'm like worried to get up in the morning because I know that it's going to be super tight and it's going to hurt a lot. But it's more the mental side of things because I'm not able to train at the capacity that I want to. I'm training really fucking hard, but like as soon as I finish training, the pain is back and I'm scared. Or I'll lift something and I'll be afraid going into a Metcon or going into a conditioning piece. And I don't like that feeling. I don't like that hesitant feeling. And I almost feel like super fragile. And I don't like that because I take a lot of pride in building strength and building the strength that I have over the last decade. And really over like the last 6 years, it hurts me more mentally and emotionally than it does physically because I have a high tolerance for pain. And a lot of people who are athletes or a lot of people who do CrossFit have this same like high tolerance for pain. They put themselves through it every single day. And I've been through a lot of emotional pain in my life as well. And that's not just saying like, oh, look at me, I've been through shit. It's more like, hey, I get what you're going through. Maybe not fully, but I understand that you're in pain right now. And I know what that feels like. And I know you can get through it too. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. When I did this on Monday, it sent me down a really dark path mentally because, again, that frustration was setting in. And then I was like, you know what? If I can just make it to my PT appointment on Thursday, then I'll be okay and he'll fix me. And I remember sitting down to do some work before I went to my PT appointment on Thursday, and I was in so much pain, I like couldn't even touch my toes. It was just so tight. And I was so worried. But again, I had that like hope that, okay, I'm going to go to the PT and it's going to be okay. I'm going to get some dry needling done. It's going to fix the problem and I'll be okay. And I went there and he alleviated it so much. Like it felt so much better. I was able to touch my toes again. I felt so much more comfortable, even though it was still uncomfortable. I felt there was a lot of relief, like 50% relief, which is huge if you think about it. But I was driving home and I was like, man, it still fucking hurts a lot. Like, it's still really uncomfortable. But again, it was a lot better than it was. So I keep trying to think of, like, it's better than it was. But then my mind goes into another spot where it's like, but you're still in pain and you still have a problem. And it's kind of like what I was talking about on one of the last episodes of the podcast where it's like I have to accept the brutal reality that I am injured. And I don't like saying that because it makes me feel fragile and weak. But it's kind of like what I say all the time with people who have been through trauma, like myself, or like everybody on this planet. We've been through trauma, and even though you are processing trauma and you're healing, that doesn't make you weak. Just because I'm healing from an injury, that doesn't make me weak. That doesn't make me fragile. That doesn't make me any less strong than I was. That just means I have to take a different approach to things, and I have to be a little bit smarter and think about the long term rather than the short term. So Friday, I felt really good during my training. As soon as I finished training, it kind of, the pain never really has gone away. But it's more of just like this super tightness in like my piriformis, my hips, my adductors. Every time I roll out my adductors, it's like immediate relief. It's crazy how the human body is all connected. And Saturday was a really bad day mentally because, again, like, I was hoping that, okay, maybe I'm just a little bit sore from the dry needling or the adjustment, but it wasn't going away. So I was getting frustrated again. Sunday was a bad day. And I'm just saying this straight up again, to be honest with you guys. I don't want anybody to come at me and be like, I'm sorry you're having a tough time, because I want to show you how how this journey works. Like, it's never going to be perfect. You're going to have moments where you feel like giving up. You're going to have moments where you literally feel numb, where you feel like a shell of a human. I remember Sunday morning, I was unloading the dishwasher. I let the dogs out and I was literally like completely numb emotionally. And all I felt was just my back. That's the only thing my mind would focus on. It wouldn't focus on anything else. And it was really challenging to get myself to be like, all right, you need to program for clients. All right, you need to plan the podcasts for the week. All right, you need to, start doing business planning stuff because we have a lot of things that we're trying to work on right now. You have to take charge and you have to be a leader and you have to put this shit to the back of your head and you just have to move forward, because not taking action, sitting in your feelings and feeling sorry for yourself isn't going to do shit. It's not going to move the needle forward. It's not going to make the pain better. It's in fact probably going to make the pain worse, because when you put a magnifying glass to anything, it makes it much worse. So the more that I focused on the pain, the worse that it became. Same with any type of pain, emotional pain, physical pain. The more thought and time and attention that you put into it, the worse that it becomes. It becomes amplified when you focus on that pain. Sunday, I had a hair appointment, which, number one, I needed it so bad, and it made me feel so much better mentally. I would have been able to enjoy it so much more if I wasn't so uncomfortable during the fact. But, for any ladies who get your hair done, it takes like 3 hours to do a partial highlight, a cut, a wash. So I was sitting in the chair for about that time, and when I got up to get into the car to then drive 45 minutes back home, by the time I got home, my back was a nightmare. And then I was in a really bad spot mentally. Like, I was just, if you know me, when I'm not in a good spot mentally, I play the song Happy by NF and I just play it over and over and over and over again. And I literally did that the whole ride home, because I am somebody who's really emotionally connected to music. So if something vibes with me or vibes with my feelings, I'm going to like ramp that shit up and I get really into it. So I got home, knocked out client programming that I needed to finish. Again, just numb. Went to the grocery store, numb. Took an Epsom salt bath. Threw bubbles in there because I'm almost 30. So like bubble baths are fucking great now. And that helped. That helped my mind. That helped my body. And it wasn't until I woke up on Monday morning that I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we don't do this. We don't just sit here and feel sorry for ourselves. And on Monday, I made the decision that, I am a true believer that everything happens for a reason. I am. And sometimes it can be really hard to accept that truth because you're in the thick of it, right? Like, a lot of you might be thinking like, well, I don't get that. Like, why the fuck would you have to get injured in order to get something good? And I think this whole process, it's been two months about now, a little more, has taught me that I need to take care of my body more. I need to take advantage of rest and recovery. I need to make sure that I'm always fueling properly, and I need to continue to fuel my body more if I want to continue to train at the level that I am and have the longevity in the sport that I want to have. Because you only get one body and you have to treat it right. And I'm known throughout my entire fitness journey to beat my ass into the ground. And it's one of those things where when you're doing it, when you're overtraining or when you're, not recovering, because I don't like the word overtraining. I feel like if you're recovering properly from your training, you can do most anything. Obviously, everybody's different. Everybody handles volume differently. And the biggest difference, though, is what I've seen is recovery. Like, when I'm focused and I'm really focused on recovery and I'm really focused on nutrition and sleep, you can throw anything at me and I'm going to be able to handle it. Versus like if I'm in a really stressful period of time with the business, or Stone's not around, or I'm not sleeping very well, or I'm under eating, then I notice that I can't handle as much volume. I can't handle as much load. I can't handle as much stress from training. Ooh, sorry, I just twisted. My back still feels like shit. But Monday, I was in the middle of my workout. And I was like, wow, I feel my glutes on these squats, which doesn't happen very often. I have a really difficult time activating my glutes, which is probably why this injury happened in the first place. And I was like, wow, I really feel my glutes like they're actually shaking while I'm squatting, like when I'm in between sets. And I was like, well, maybe like this everything happens for a reason thing is everything is happening for a reason so that I can feel my glutes and I can get stronger and I can prevent injuries like this happening again because I'm going to take care of my body. And that kind of got me into the process of looking at this topic of healing. And I was just looking up quotes because I occasionally just like look up quotes so that I can have creative ideas, but also just like get ideas for like my morning thoughts that I put on my Instagram story or even for this podcast. Because sometimes I'll look at a quote and I'll like expand upon the topic because it touches me. And I found something that said healing hurts, but hurt heals. Healing hurts, but hurt heals. And I thought about it and I was like, wow, that's really true. Like, if you really put thought into it, like, healing fucking hurts. Whether it be healing from a physical trauma, like an injury, or whether it be healing from an emotional trauma, right? Or whether it be somebody who's in a rehab center, somebody who's detoxing from drugs, they're healing from their addiction, but it's really fucking painful. Right? PT, rehab, recovery. The people who are like the trained experts in these fields, like the PT or the person working at the rehab facilities or the psychiatrist or the therapist or the doctor, they know exactly where to apply pressure so that they can release tension or strengthen where the person is weak. And it's kind of like, you have exercises or things that are going to touch different pressure points if you're trying to heal. And it's nothing personal. Like if somebody, squeezes on a pressure point, whether it be a physical pressure point, like where a muscle is tight, or whether it be an emotional pressure point where you're a little bit sensitive or vulnerable, it's supposed to hurt. And that's how you develop the will to endure, to persevere through life's many challenges, because no matter what you've been through in the past, like your past doesn't disqualify you from being successful. And I used to believe that it did. But now I remind myself of that most often, that like, hey, just because you went through this doesn't mean you can't do this. Just because you went through all this shit and you almost died and you had such low confidence that you couldn't even look at yourself in the mirror with your eyes open, like that doesn't disqualify you from being a successful business owner, from being a successful podcast host. This doesn't disqualify you from being an athlete. And this back, tailbone, hip, whatever the fuck injury or dysfunction that I have every day, like, this taught me so much about how healing truly does hurt. But that whole week where I felt 100%, like I had to go through a lot of fucking pain to get there. Like every time I go to the PT and he's hitting on those pressure points and he's stretching out my hips in a weird way and it hurts. But then you leave and you're like, okay, my body's healing, right? Our body has an incredible ability to heal, but so does our mind. And, through training every day is another area. Like, it hurts. Training hurts. Hurts my mind, hurts my body, hurts my soul. But it's making me better. It's making me more resilient. It's allowing me to be able to endure and persevere through more challenges that are thrown at me as an athlete, as a human. My eating disorder recovery, same thing. Like, that was the most emotionally and physically painful part of my life. And I don't think anything, or I would hope that nothing touches that. But I healed. And yeah, it fucking hurt, but I healed. But I had to go through the painful healing in order to get to the other side and meet the best version of myself, or the strongest version of myself. My dad, when he was detoxing from Oxycontin, same fucking thing. Healing hurts. He was detoxing from a drug that took over his life and ruined our family. And I saw how much pain he was in every single day when he was detoxing. If you have never seen somebody detox from a hard drug like that, it's wild. But he did it. And he healed from it. But it was fucking painful, and it was painful for all of us to watch. It's something that I'll never forget. And it's something that steers me away from any hard drug. I'll be real. Like, we have some muscle relaxers that Stone got from a buddy that were in a baggie, and they've been in a baggie because Stone doesn't take anything. So his buddy gave it to him when he had some back injuries, and Stone was like, fuck this. Like, I'm not taking this. And I was like, good. I don't want you to take it. And man, I never thought about taking anything like that. But when I was hurting so bad, and I'm still hurting, but like when I was hurting more emotionally and I felt so numb, I was like, well, why the fuck wouldn't you take it? Just take it. Like, it might help. But I didn't, because it has absolutely no benefit for me. And I never want to put myself through something like that. And healing from past traumas or past limiting beliefs or current limiting beliefs or insecurities, like, they all hurt, which is why so many people avoid healing in the first place. So they just settle for having these insecurities, for having these limiting beliefs, or having these traumas that they never actually work through. And there's so many different things that you can research and look up when it comes to, like, here are the 5 steps of healing. Here are the 7 processes of healing. And, you know, I've looked at a lot of them, and I was thinking, you know, everybody heals differently. But I feel like a lot of us can probably resonate with these 7 steps of healing: awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance, feeling the pain, grieving, forgiveness, moving forward. And I think we can all come to an agreement, no matter where we're at in our life, that awareness is probably the first step and the most important step to healing. Because if you're not aware of the pain that you're in, and we're talking here now from an emotional standpoint, right? Because most people, if you're in physical pain, you're probably aware of it, right? Now, the first step is becoming aware of the emotional pain and trauma that needs healing. And this really just comes down to recognizing the feelings and behaviors that are causing you to feel the way that you are, and then also identifying the source of the trauma. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of people stop there. Like, they don't want to face the trauma, so they never actually identify the source. So they remain in distress their entire life. The next step is acknowledgement, right? So acknowledging the pain and the trauma, and then moving into the next step, which is accepting that it's part of your life right now. And this involves admitting to yourself that there is a problem, and then also taking responsibility for your healing. Not everything that happens to you is your fault. However, everything is your responsibility to heal from. And until you take that responsibility, you'll never heal. Now, the third step is accepting that healing is possible, and then also committing to the journey, because it is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to snap your fingers and feel better. And it's naive to think that you will. But this also involves letting go of any doubts or any fears about the healing process, and trusting in the process, and trusting that it is possible to move forward from here. The fourth step is feeling the pain. So allowing yourself to feel the pain and the trauma without judgment or without trying to avoid it. Most people, they try to avoid it. They push it down. They push it down. But anything that you push down, it'll always come back up, unless you process it and you feel it. So feeling the pain is probably, well, obviously, one of the most painful steps, because you actually have to experience the emotions and the sensations that come with the trauma, even though they're very uncomfortable and extremely painful. The fifth step is grieving. So acknowledging the loss that could have come from the trauma and allowing yourself to just feel that, like, grieve with it. And this involves recognizing the things that have been lost as a result of trauma, such as trust, safety, sense of self, and allowing yourself to mourn the losses. But then the sixth step goes into forgiving yourself and forgiving others for any harm that they could have caused by the trauma. So letting go of anger, blame, resentment, and finding love and compassion and understanding for yourself. And then the last step is moving forward. You know, the final step is making a commitment to move forward with a new sense of purpose and create a vision for the future and take steps to make that vision a reality. Setting goals, seeking support if you need it, which most of us do. And then also engaging in things, activities, taking action on things that promote healing and growth. So it's a process that most won't fully commit to or stay consistent with. It's kind of like with any journey, career, fitness. People won't fully commit. They're interested in healing. They're interested in getting better, but they won't fully commit to it because it's a very painful process. But if you can commit to it and do it consistently, you're going to be able to be so much stronger on the other side. Because healing is uncomfortable because you're uncovering and confronting these things that you would have preferred to just kind of keep suppressed, but that in itself is going to cause you to feel the distress in your mind and your body, feeling like that traumatic experience had just happened. Which is why when so many people have traumas or that they haven't processed or healed from, they deal with physical symptoms, right? They have fatigue, they have gut issues, they have inflammation in the body. It's because you're in this distressed state and you're not giving your body and mind time to heal. You're not facing the pain that you need to get to. So all of this to say that for anybody out there who is avoiding a trauma or avoiding something because you don't want to heal from it because of how painful the healing process is, understand that healing hurts, but hurting heals. If you ever want to get better, if you ever want to feel okay, you're going to have to go through the pain and the discomfort of healing in order to get there. And it's not going to happen on its own. Somebody can support you and guide you through the process, but at the end of the day, it goes down to you taking action and doing the things that you need to do to heal. So it's complex. There's a lot of steps in the process that involves just understanding and addressing any sort of hurt that you're going through, any pain, physical or emotional. And on the emotional side of things, like emotional trauma can be stored in the body, like I said, leading to physical symptoms. And you might go to a doctor and be like, oh, I have all these symptoms, and they don't know what the fuck's wrong with you. And the reason is because you won't fucking address your own shit. But healing all of this trauma can be treated through different techniques, stress management, taking care of your body, and really, more than anything, following those steps of healing and trusting the process and understanding that it's a journey. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be tough, but you can handle it. It's going to require patience, self-awareness, but most importantly, it's going to require your commitment to the journey. So if you're ready to heal and if you want to feel better, you have to commit to the journey. So go out and do one thing that's going to take you one step closer to where you want to be.